Welcome to Duality Check, the podcast where two brothers embark on a journey through the realms of scientific inquiry, the mysteries of the past, and the uncharted frontiers of spirituality. Join us as we explore the wonders of our world and beyond, all while embracing the roles of curious bystanders rather than experts. Together we'll unravel the tapestry of existence, blending the dichotomies of knowledge and wonder. Get ready to question, ponder, and delve into the dualities that shape our understanding of reality on Duality Check. I'm Drew.
And I'm Dean, and welcome to episode 66.
66.
So, it's been 2 weeks since we recorded last.
Yeah.
I went on a little getaway with some buddies. But yeah, I'm excited to be back. It's been a lot I've been following in the meantime. What about you?
Yeah, I've watched a few stuff more recently. I take a little while where I'm just like focused on other things.
Right.
But then just the last week been listening to like Jesse Michaels' new stuff.
Yeah. Did you listen to the new interview? What's his name? Kirk McDonald?
No, I haven't got to that one yet. I've been trying to catch up. It's been like a few weeks since I've listened to him. I was listening to his episode with something Birch. Or Britch, or what's the guy's name? Something Britch.
Let's see.
Anyway, he was talking about his time working on the special access programs. He was never read into a lot of the stuff, but he has a ton of like firsthand like accounts from people within the program and stuff.
Yeah.
It was this guy. Right here, John Blitch.
Yes.
Lieutenant Colonel John Blitch. He was the one that and then I've been listening to Chris.
The Chris Ramsey one?
Chris Ramsey one.
That one's fun.
Which is really good so far. I'm like 3/4 of the way down with that one.
I never finished the John Blitch one.
It's good. It's pretty good. He goes on rants for a while, but Jesse, yeah, I like that one. I listened to it while I was watering and rolling some turf at work.
Chris Ramsey had some interesting stuff to say, like as a magician. Like he talked a lot about like the illusion, and like the way
his fascination, the way like him and
the way you can control what people believe,
Right. It's a good one.
And yeah, that has a lot to do with like if there's any sort of like cover up or psyops, like the art of that is very similar to the art of magic, right? Because you're trying to get people to believe a certain thing.
Misdirection and and like making the whole charade about it.
Yeah, I found that super interesting.
He's a cool guy. He's got the podcast or the YouTube channel,
the Area 52.
And he does a lot of cool, like really like well produced mini series on these topics.
Mm-hmm. He has a whole Lacerta Files thing too.
Yep. The same week we dropped ours.
I know.
Right after we dropped our second one, I think he dropped his episode on it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Obviously, his is pretty highly produced. We're just talking about it.
Right.
Reading it. But
we'll get
he's
there
got a good one.
Drew. But this is a ground up operation.
Yeah. He had already been on YouTube for 10 years by that point.
Right. He's an experienced YouTuber who was a magic YouTuber.
Yeah.
But he kind of switched.
But he's experienced
topics.
in like the YouTubing space.
Right.
And producing videos and stuff. So
right.
Probably edits.
We got some cool messages.
Oh yeah.
I got 3 of them. Well, 4 or 5, depending. Let's start with Greg.
Okay.
He commented on YouTube. He says, "Hey guys, I'm back, listening attentively," which is cool because I missed you, man.
Yeah, we've noticed your presence not around. Happy you're back.
And then I was going through our emails, and he sent us a couple emails too, so thought we could go over those.
Yeah, he had the PS, just so you know. I don't know if you read that part.
I have, yeah.
Okay. Says, I'm glad you're still doing well and making your podcast. I'm
Yeah.
listening to your new one right now. The one about alleged structures under Giza Pyramid. It caused quite a stir, this one, didn't it? It's a huge claim, and I'd love it to be true. But in my opinion, it's just a scam to convince the naive ones to donate some cash to them. I recommend a very thoughtful analysis on this whole thing from this channel. This is the Khafre Pyramid SAR scan analysis from the Ancient Architects YouTube channel. So he linked this to us. So yeah, I'll have to check this out.
Yeah, I haven't looked at that one yet.
It's like a 20-minute video.
Yeah, that's on my list now. Thank you.
Yeah. And then go back to his message.
Yeah.
Let's see. He says Matt Simpson is the guy behind this channel since 2017. If I'm not mistaken, he's got awesome knowledge in the subject, unlike lots of YouTube presenters. He also presents very controversial topics, sometimes all supported by facts and history, like the one about whether Tutankhamun's tomb discovery could be a fake. You'll love it. Also, our own community, the UFO Paranormal from Discord, is also very skeptical of these shafts, in quotes,
right
under the pyramids. Anyway, I'm tuning in to listen. P.S. If you want to read my message.
Yeah. There was a part.
And then peace and love, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Peace and love, Greg, man.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. I'm just trying to be open-mindedly skeptical, right? Yeah. It is possible that these people came up with something and are going about it in a terrible way. So I'm going to leave the door open for that. Like if they followed up with paper, if there's further research, if people try and validate. I don't want to just point at someone's methodology or way of marketing themselves or going about a process wrong. Going about a process wrong doesn't necessarily mean that what your conclusion is wrong. Right. It's an indicator that you need to be suspicious of it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. So you have to stay open, I think. And I think it is, as I've heard both sides of the argument, people are arguing that this scientist, is it the Malanga guy? Malanga, yeah. Who, whichever one of them is the SAR expert, he created this like Doppler tomography version of it that is like an addition to the SAR scanning that is supposed to be a type of analysis that enables the depth.
Right.
But that's an assertion if you don't have the paper to back it up.
Because it's a new thing. It's a novel thing.
You have to be able to prove that the way you're doing it is valid. Yeah. Just saying what your results are isn't proof. Especially
from one account. Like if you were to come out with a paper saying that you did 10 sites and you can verify like 60% of them.
Did you? So I tried to, but I didn't. And it's been a busy week for me. And the AI translation wasn't good, but there was finally a conference with the scientists that was released, and you can watch it with the AI translation, but it just doesn't seem very like good, like very readable. Yeah. So I'm hoping a better version will come out, or someone will come out with something with more of the details. Yeah. But it's possible it's come out, but I haven't seen a paper yet either. Yeah. So it still depends on those things. Like you have to be able to. I've heard people say that maybe he developed some sort of software, and this is just a way for him to market his software to people. Like that would actually be a pretty genius.
That would be actually very, very genius. But I haven't heard of it yet. Like it's not out there.
Right.
Nobody's pushing it.
Anyway, thanks for the comment.
That would be so funny. He's just like, yeah, so this is the SAR new technique, and if it's an attachment to the old system.
What better way to get the notice of like oil prospectors and stuff, like use our new technology. Yeah. You can buy it. I got it. It's a way to get the word out.
That would be so freaking funny, man. Can't put it past him, though.
He also sent a follow-up message with some extra tips on joining that Discord, so hopefully we can get in there.
Yeah, if you're interested in joining the UFO History podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to go to their YouTube channel, click on their most recent episode, and then try to join the Discord with that link.
Right, because it needs to be new enough link before it expires.
Yeah. Somebody set it to like instant expiration on their server.
We got another comment from a friend of mine who just checked out an episode. This is Queen of Hearts. She says, I love Alan Watts. This is a comment on our Integrating the Dark Side with Alan Watts, talking about Carl Jung.
Yeah.
I think when he is talking about seeing your own potential to do the things that others do can be defined very simply as empathy. I agree with that. Of course, he has to find the most like poetic, long-winded ways to say things, but that's essentially what he's saying.
Yeah, might take a couple paragraphs.
Right. The ability to empathize with an adversary also brings to mind one of my favorite sayings, that when you truly understand your enemy, there can only be love that follows.
I've never heard that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I like that.
In a separate note, I was wondering if you guys have ever done an episode on Dr. Joe Dispenza. He made a series on his book called Becoming Supernatural.
I don't think we have. We will have to.
No. So I Googled him a little bit, and he seems like one of these doctors that's all about like peak performance. Like he's like all these ways that you can get more out of your life with like science and stuff, you know? But I have not checked him out, so I'm excited. I feel like I've heard him on a podcast or something in the past. Like the name rings a bell.
Yeah, but I can't remember where I may have heard that before.
Yeah. So this is his website, Create a New Personal Reality. Breaking the habit of being yourself. Synchronizing your energy. Progressive online course on foundational program for personal transformation. So he's like a self-help, science-based self-help, which is cool. I'm going to check him out.
Yeah. Thanks for all the messages.
Yeah. Appreciate
that. We got one more, yeah?
We have a message from Cease. Some details have to be left out, but she says, the last 30 minutes of your episode this week, boys, the riding of the waves of life analogy. So good. My tidal wave dreams comes to mind.
Yeah.
I've had a weird tidal wave dream.
I've had
it a couple times too.
Yeah, that's one of the classic ones. It's like comes back.
This is our old antelope house, and I was like on the roof, and then we could see the wave coming from like far.
No way.
Yeah.
I had a wave like it was like a wave of all the things I didn't like that came through like the main road nearby, and then like started filling up the court and like started to eventually overtake the house. And I'm looking out the bonus room window to it all happening, where you can see everything. There's like no trees, there's no like nothing like blocking your view, and you're just seeing like this thing take over you. And it wasn't like water in my dream. It was like all the things that I've like ever been afraid of.
So it was like a symbolic flooding.
Yeah. Where things just closed in, but it was like it was like things that I just was afraid of closing in around me.
She says, Entropy talk reminded me of my crystal healing certification classes. The woman who ran the course was a science teacher and used entropy to explain how crystals are used to help aid us in our healing. Yeah,
that's a pretty common claim.
Yeah, I've always been so skeptical about crystals, but ever since the telepathy tapes and the one, who was it?
It was the main guy.
Yeah.
Can't remember his name now, but
he would, I think his mom like got a crystal.
Yep.
Someone gave it to her and she brought it home, and he like came home super excited looking for it, and when went straight to where it was, he like pulled the location out of her
memory.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. And he was like obsessed with it, and he said he liked how the energy that came off
helped
it.
him. Yeah. Because he's like needs good energy, because like people's like negative energy, he says, was like an attractant to people of his kind because they were like sponges for energy.
Yeah.
But mostly negative energy was what there was coming at them. So when they see something that gives them good energy, they like clamor onto it, you know.
Have you listened to the most recent Talk Tapes episode?
I haven't.
I shared it with you guys in our chat.
I was going to click on it, but I haven't yet.
But it's about these messages that they've been getting from people with Alzheimer's in their life, and they're reporting similar situations.
Really?
Yeah. And so they did an interview with a man whose wife had early onset Alzheimer's, like in her 50s. Dang. And he ended up like learning to have a telepathic bond with her. And he's become like a member of the community, in the Alzheimer's community. And like people who have Alzheimer's, he'll go to a home and they'll like talk to him. And he'll like deliver messages between people. But it's interesting. I wonder how much of it is him or how much of it is them. Right. He says if you want to get in tune with it, it's just you should be meditating so you can like learn to clear your head and learn to like pick up
on the small little hints and things that it's more of like a physical. It can be like it feels mental because of how like minute the details are, but like really what's happening is like most likely you're picking up on the smallest details of what the micro interactions you're having with that person, like the eye twitches and the facial expressions and the, you know, like all these things are actually they're information that your body is taking in. It's just whether you put any kind of emphasis on them or description to it. So eventually when the only way for them to communicate is to do those things.
I have a clip of this, I think, saved for later, but Jesse Michaels, in his interview with Kirk McConnell, he has a bit of a discussion about how the relation between the UFO phenomenon and the telepathy phenomenon, because everyone who over the years, the thousands of people, like it is very highly common archetype within the reports that there is telepathic communication between the entities. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting because also around that same time that all the UFO stuff is happening is when the and all these, you know, experiencers start coming out with all these talk of telepathy. You know, the United States gets this secret remote viewing telepathy investigation program going on. Like, is that a coincidence?
Interesting.
So it could be that the autistic the non-speakers, the spellers, that they are just way more tuned into this, right? Like this is just something by their circumstances that teaches them how to really master this aspect of being a human, right?
Yeah. That reminds me of the Jesse Michaels episode with Chris Ramsey, in that they were talking about, at one point, he was talking about a study of like, there's a group of scientists studying children at like an infant stage, and that like what they're finding is that the likelihood of like infants on a general scale, like being born with synesthesia and like other abilities and like all these other like these other senses that eventually, you know, are weeded out, and like there is a connection between like the brain at the infant stage and being connected to these extra sensory
that was
abilities.
On the Chris Ramsey one, right, where he was like, apparently synesthesia is also one of those traits, like if you're left-handed or like gay men, or like just women over men and children over adults, right? Or people who have like crazy traumatic experiences in their life, or injuries or near-death experiences. There's a bunch of ways that you can be sort of predisposed or, you know, opened up to the possibility. And I think psychedelics is a way as well.
Yeah.
And I think religion and meditation and like there's just so many ways that you can start to interact on these other levels.
It's a fascinating thing. And I actually have a study I was going to read from Yale.
Yeah, right here.
And it's a study that they did on why we don't remember being babies.
Yeah, interesting.
And so the new study provides clues, they're saying. If you go down here a bit. So we can just read a little bit of this, at least the intro. Though we learn so much during our first years of life, we can't, as adults, remember specific events from that time. Researchers have long believed we don't hold on to these experiences because the part of the brain responsible for saving memories, the hippocampus, is still developing well into adolescent and just can't encode memories in our earliest years. But new Yale research finds evidence that's not the case. In a study, Yale researchers showed infants new images and later tested whatever they remembered, whether they remembered them. When an infant's hippocampus was more active upon seeing an image for the first time, they were more likely to appear to recognize the image later. These findings, published March 20th in the Science Journal, indicate that memories can indeed be encoded in our brains in our first few years of life. And the researchers are now looking into what happens to those memories over time. Our inability to remember specific events from the first years of our life is called infantile amnesia. But studying this phenomenon is challenging. The hallmark of these types of memories, which we call episodic memories, is that you can describe them to others. But that's off the table when you're dealing with pre-verbal infants.
Right.
Nick Turk Brown.
They don't have the language or the logic honed yet in order to categorize what they're experiencing through the language channels that you are later using in life to help form and reinforce memories and chain them together in sequence, right? So it's not necessarily, I think what they're saying is it's not necessarily that you're not experiencing these things and that your brain isn't forming impressions of those memories. It's just probably the way they're connected to the rest of the brain makes them harder to access, because later on you learn to use language and logic and your sense of time and this like story you build of your life as a way to like catalog
the only memories you can access are those that are categorized in that fashion.
Right.
So the memories before then are there potentially, or likely they are there, but they're encoded in a different form of different form of like categorization, which is non-categorized basically. So basically the only way, and maybe that has something to do with like dreams or some sort of like when you do psychedelics or something like this, like tap into like this other realm, is like maybe all your experiences from before are encoded in every sense that you could possibly have. Yeah. But they're encoded without words. What if you can
learn to access memories through channels other than trying to think when that was, trying to think where that was? Like if you try and disconnect it from the language and you try and access it through actual visual images or smells, that's probably why smell is such a powerful
nostalgia
memory.
Yeah.
So what if you could recreate smells from your childhood?
Right. Would that trigger something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
smells
fascinating.
And sounds and places and like imagery.
So it's like visually they're able to remember these things, and they'll actually have a physical reaction where their brain is reacting a certain way based on whether they've seen it or not.
Yeah.
So they're able to tell that they're having it without having to know if they can describe it. Like with like later kids.
Right.
Like kids later on, they have that like fully able to access the memories, and they can retell you what the story is of that memory.
Right.
But that is through the lens of being able to use words and sentences and the structure of it. Like even kids, like with Wyatt and stuff, if I ask him to remember something that we did before, like it's very sparse in detail. It's mostly like the one thing that he felt during it, which was like, if I remember, we talk about Disneyland. which we went recently as a family.
Mm-hmm.
If we talk about it, usually Sawyer will be like, I was scared on Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right.
Because he remembers that feeling.
Right.
And what that did. He doesn't remember anything else. He doesn't remember meeting Mickey, which he loves. He doesn't like, those are like, it's like just the one thing that like really stood out to him.
Right.
And like where Wyatt is more like, I remember sleeping in the hotel in the bed next to Dada. It's like, those are the memories that he remembers, like the biggest thing.
Because he has those concepts formed, and so he can index them in his brain based on those, like, on the fact that you keep learning, you can start improving your indexing pattern.
Yep.
Like another example is like my job is getting purchased by a new company, and who's a bigger company, and they've got all these systems, right? And like we've been this like small company that's been around for decades, but like we got a lot of like cobbled together old methods of doing things.
Yeah.
So it's like they're absorbing us, they're teaching us their system. So we're like learning a new way to keep records in a way that is going to be a way that they can access and integrate, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately it's going to increase our ability to do more. Yeah. But you're never going to have a complete recollection of all the things that happened in the company's past because it's a totally different system. Like you didn't have that language, that context, that sorting library by which to like do all that work. So now if you go back, there's no way to access it.
Yep.
Like a lot of paperwork until it got digitized and scanned, or a lot of images if they're not on the internet. Like if something doesn't exist in the internet age, unless someone has specifically put it into a computer, you can't search it on Google.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the world doesn't remember something.
Yep, basically.
So
unless you scan every file, every piece of paper.
So it seems similar for ourselves too, right?
Yep.
Like if we don't have language yet, we don't have these later structures, we don't sort it, the memories that way.
I think this is a perfect segue. What time are we at right now?
I think we're ready for our first break.
Real quick before we go to a break,
let's
play that clip that I put in there.
Kurt?
No, that one. Yeah, let's play this and then we'll head to break right after this.
Cool.
Stories is in a mother's womb where two babies, and one turns to the other and says, "Do you believe in life after delivery?" And the other replies, "Why, of course, there has to be something after delivery. Maybe we're here to prepare ourselves for what will be later." "Nonsense," said the first. "There's no life after delivery. What kind of life would that be?" "I don't know," said the second. "But there'll be more light than here. Maybe we'll walk with our legs and eat with our mouths. Maybe we'll have other senses we can't understand now." First goes, "That's ridiculous. Walking is impossible, and eating with our mouths, that's absurd. The umbilical cord is what scientifically supplies nutrition and all that we need, but it's far too short. Life after delivery is to be logically excluded." And the second says, "What if it's just different than it is here? Maybe we don't need that physical cord anymore." The first goes, "Okay, if there were life after delivery, then tell me, why has no one ever come back from there? Delivery is the end of life, and in the after delivery is nothing but darkness and silence and oblivion. It takes us nowhere." And the second says, "But certainly we'll meet Mother, and she'll take care of us." The first goes, "Mother? You actually believe in Mother? If Mother exists, where is she now?" And the second goes, "She's all around us. We are of her. It is in her that we live. Without her, this world would not and could not exist." And the first says, "I don't see her. It's only logical that she's not here." To which the second replied, "Sometimes, when you're in silence and you really listen, you can perceive her presence. You can hear her loving." My favorite stories.
Wow.
And a mother.
Isn't that like a really good analogy, man?
Dang.
That's crazy. I saw this
and I was like, beautifully told analogy. Yeah. Like the analogy is good, but the way he delivered it was really good.
Yeah. That's why I was like, I gotta play this. This is really good.
Such a good metaphor. Oh my God.
Yeah. For comparing our lives and the death and rebirth cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like there's always a scary end to what is, but that doesn't mean that what is coming is not another rebirth in a sense.
Yeah.
There's no way to know. There's no way to tell.
And then DMT is like the baby having the ability to see through his mother's eyes.
See what's beyond.
Yeah. And then you come back and you're like, Dude,
didn't
I
make
can't.
sense.
I can't tell you.
That didn't
I
make
can't tell
sense.
you. I mean, I can try,
Yeah,
but I can't tell you.
I can tell you how I felt, maybe. Kind
Yeah.
of. Yeah. I mean, yeah, what a great analogy. Let's take a break. We'll
okay.
simmer on this, and
Yeah.
then we'll come back after this song.
What do you guys think of that analogy? Are you ready to be born? Have you been born already? Are you
Another
reborn?
perfect title to the next song here.
This is TJ McNulty, and the song's called Moment.
Can I have a moment to myself to recuperate these feelings that don't help? Our situation, or the situation we're in, the sticky situation that fights both our emotions. And can we take a moment to reflect upon these thoughts we thought about, these feelings of regret? Well, that we might miss a good thing, a thing that might pass us up while we are both watching. The days go by and these feelings grow apart. We'll say goodbye to the emotions in our heart. We'll gather knowledge and maybe we will see that we were too young to be in love and this wasn't meant to be. To fully understand the ways of love and how it works or makes us comprehend all the emotions and all the sweat and tears that's forced into this relationship through these last couple of years. And can we take a moment to realize that you and I are just a phase in a series through our lives? 'Cause you'll change and I'll be that one guess who love you while it lasts, and guess a privilege to see. The days go by and these feelings grow apart. We'll say goodbye to the emotions in our heart. We'll gather wisdom and maybe we will see that we were too young to read love, and this wasn't meant to be. We are too young to be in love, and this wasn't meant to be.
Welcome back. Just real quick, I'm gonna do a I'm gonna do a little drink review here. We're drinking Boochcraft again. This is a kombucha, hard kombucha.
I found a sampler at the store tonight, so
we're drinking. I've accidentally opened two, so I've got a pineapple lemon here, and I've got a citrus berry.
I've got the pineapple lemon right now.
But these are 7%.
There's also
a lot of
passion
flavors.
fruit, blood orange, and grapefruit hibiscus in here.
Yeah, it's a good little sampler.
Yeah, I'm excited. And yeah, I really like these hard kombuchas. They just feel cleaner than drinking a beer.
I've had other ones, and these are way better than all the other ones.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So we're out there. We did a whole nother podcast, as we always do.
Yeah.
But we also realized we didn't even get all the way through Amy's letter.
So let's finish that real quick.
Her stuff just led so well into a bunch of things we prepared.
Yeah,
so.
we need you on the podcast, Amy.
Yeah.
We can do like 3-4 hours.
Your message will just like be littered through the whole show. She says, your placebo talk was good. I always love the saying, whether you believe it or not, you're right. Your beliefs are all that matter for you. And there's the skeptical minded people will be like, whoa, right? But like,
sure.
And of course there are caveats to that. Nothing's ever that simple, but like it is also true. That's exactly how the brain works. So, yeah, I agree. She said the little dream talk that came up. I'm trying to remember what that was. It's been 2 weeks since our last show.
It
so
may
I don't
have been
remember
like a small like hint of it, but I know she's a heavy
waiting,
dreamer. So
yeah, she's waiting for that episode to come out.
We should
I'm a
definitely
dreamer and strongly believe in my dreams as a tool that I use in life. My tidal wave dreams come to mind again here.
Yeah, I know she's.
We haven't done like a dream interpretation thing.
No, but we've talked about dreams before,
yeah,
especially in our consciousness episode and like other subsequent episodes. But yeah, no, dreams is a fascinating thing, and I'm actually very interested in it. So I'll research some like cases.
Oh, yeah,
and we'll have to do an episode soon about that because I am very interested in like what dreams have to say.
Yeah.
And how they are can be interpreted and like stuff like that. So, yeah, we'll definitely make that happen, Amy.
She also says the bit about some people's purpose is being chaos. She said, I love that. You're right. That's why we need to stop with all the judging of people. Everything has a purpose, unless it's in our life to judge how it's going for us. We have no business judging what's happening in someone else's life for them. I was a little chaos starter for a while, right, Dean? Winky face. Dude, yeah.
Oh, yeah, not just Dean. It was all of us, Amy.
But she was the oldest, and I was like close in age to her. And then there was a little age gap, and then you guys. So it was always like the big kids and the little kids.
But we all felt the chaos.
But yeah, dude, when I was like younger and smaller than her, she could just make me do whatever she wanted. And yeah, I was playing with Barbies. She would make me dress up, like you name it. But she would play with me too.
Sure. But you were her puppet.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were her plaything.
That's what big sisters are for.
Yeah.
It's had a place in my life at the time. I find I'm not like that anymore. Well, maybe it slips out from time to time. For sure. I think it's important to have a little element of chaos in us.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're a person that's like, as long as you're not causing harm to people, chaos is not a...
Well, it's also just like, you don't have to always plan everything.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Sometimes just let life happen to you, right? That's inviting some chaos, right?
Exactly.
You don't have to control everything.
Exactly. No, that's a great point.
She says, man, the intuition talk. Dude, why don't we focus on your intuition from a young age? Yeah, on our intuition from a young age, right. This should be included in mainstream curriculum, in my opinion. I mean, I didn't even know what that word was until I started my spiritual journey. And that's really true. Imagine growing up from an elementary school age, understanding, learning how the brain works, learning what intuition and how that's kind of like this side of your brain that interprets things more abstractly. Mm-hmm. Like that's it communicating with you. It doesn't have language, so it gives you a feeling.
It's creating connections and giving you a feeling, yeah. Right.
So if you learn to interpret it, you learn to talk to that other side of your brain, you learn to speak through symbols and images and feelings, then you have access to a whole other side of your brain that you're normally not using, you know? This should be included in mainstream curriculum. Yeah, dude. She says, we tell kids to listen to your body when it's hungry or full, but then we tell them what to eat and when and to listen to the adults in your life. Be respectful. We hope they are safe with whom they listen to. I always had very strong feelings about people in my life. I had no idea what this was, and now I know it was my intuition. Right. So without going into too much detail, yeah, there's people in Amy's life that she struggled with that she as a young kid, she couldn't necessarily put words to it, but she would just rebel against these like certain people in life that, turned out like she was in the right, but like she didn't have the like language for that, right? But she was listening to her intuition, but she didn't know what that was.
The way to do that when you have no way of expressing that in a safe environment is to rebel and to make noise and to do whatever you can to like bring attention to yourself.
And I think another thing that's so powerful about learning to listen to your own intuition is that by extension, you can then learn to trust other people's intuition as well. Yep. Right? Like if you have an understanding of your own intuition, how it works, you can have a feel for how someone else's grasp on their own intuition is. And now you have two people's intuition and they can communicate between each other, right? So now we're getting like these group effects that makes us such strong survivors as humans. Yep. But we're not just doing it with our logic and our language and our science. We're doing it with our intuition too.
And body language and all the nonverbal stuff.
Through art, through,
all the anything nonverbal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great points.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. I just reacted, not always making smart choices because I had no idea what was happening.
Yeah.
She said, I absolutely loved happiness isn't a goal. It's a state of being.
Yep.
Right. It's super important. Like you can turn on happiness if you know how to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
Always very insightful.
She also asked, and this is the part where she was like, don't say everything, but there's a person in our life who has a certain illness where, it's hard for them to, it's like, we're not sure if it's like maybe schizophrenic or maybe bipolar. It was something where like you kind of lose... Yeah, you're anyway accused of losing your attachment to reality.
Yeah, you lose your ability to explain what it is that you're experiencing.
Right.
In a real way where people are concerned.
Yeah.
So whatever that may, whether it be schizophrenia.
She's asking if I have a new perspective of it with the newfound knowledge.
We've talked about this generally, but we didn't put any names in it or words to it necessarily. But
yeah. It really makes me curious. Mm-hmm. But it also makes me concerned because it makes me want to have a conversation with that person with a new context. But I'm also scared of what if you feed into someone's unhealthy delusions in a way that actually harms them. Right? And so I don't know... it's so confusing, and until the world has like grown up to understand both sides of all this, it's hard to just take a cold psychological assessment as the whole truth. Like when there's could be other things. What if someone isn't actually schizophrenic and maybe they just had some sort of event in their life where their brain kicked into a state where they're sensitive to things they were not sensitive to before, and they don't know how to deal with it. Their life didn't set them up to be prepared for dealing with visions and communications, right?
They were never, ever even understood that were possible.
How would you deal with that if you weren't prepared for it, and it just happened?
Yeah.
Now that I have some like psychedelic experience and stuff, imagine if your brain went into that state and you didn't cause it, and it just happened and you couldn't turn it off. you're not necessarily...
You're a prisoner to it, though.
Right, but imagine how crazy that would be in your inability to communicate it with someone. You would come off as crazy.
Yeah,
and maybe you are to a certain degree, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't still seeing what you're seeing,
You're
like
not,
from your subjective perspective, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that what you're seeing doesn't exist on some level of reality.
Right.
We don't know what if it's actually seeing actual spirits and actual visions of an actual alternate dimension. You just can't turn it off, and therefore we call it a psychological illness.
Right. Well, and where it becomes dangerous is when your belief starts to go against the physical nature of the physical laws of your understanding, like
when you stop being able to use the same indicators we quote unquote sane people use to like calibrate ourselves in the world and in life, and you start making decisions that might be
putting other people in harm,
or putting
other
yourself
people
or other people in harm's way. You're right. And so that's super important, but that still doesn't necessarily mean that everything that you're experiencing or you're seeing is
factual or not happening.
Not happening in some sense of the word, or even in an objective sense, but in a plane of existence we don't have access to.
Or just the idea of it, right? Like, it's not that, like, so you could be tapped into a realm of a realm of information that's telling you what's possible, but it's telling you what's possible from a mind focused to that reality. We live in a reality where there's consequences from jumping off of a building.
Totally.
We live in that reality. So if you start telling other people in your reality, especially, let's just say, young people that are impressionable.
You tell people, or you just throw someone off a building because you have so much faith that they'll fly. Right.
If you start doing those types of things, you're putting other people in harm's way to satisfy your beliefs.
Right. Well, and that comes with, like, imagine a psychedelic state happening to you without you being able to turn it off,
or even aware that it started in the first place.
And imagine, because of how important set and setting are in the psychedelic world, right? Like, imagine when that comes on without your doing. That's not the right set and setting. Like, set is all about your mindset, right?
Yeah.
Going into it with a positive state of mind, with an expectation, with a goal, with like clearing your plate,
clear goals. Yeah.
Now, if something like that just happens to you and you can't turn it off, like, imagine that spiral of like panic and
oh man,
right?
Yeah, no, that's true.
And that's exactly what causes that spiral. So,
not that it's not happening; it's that you still can't stake.
Well, it's because you have so much control over it, because it's being determined by your conscious awareness and emotion and so
and intention. Yeah.
If it's just something that's happening to you, like, because we know the brain can produce DMT, the body can produce it. So imagine you get a big fat endogenous dose of it that happens for whatever reason, genetically or whatever.
And you just start seeing,
you're just in another world. You're kind of connected to this reality, or maybe sometimes more than others. But man, like,
well, and even like the idea, like what Chris Ramsey was talking about with Jesse Michaels on their more recent podcast, is like, you might be experiencing something on a completely different realm pathway, but the body is still there, and the body has to function for survival.
Right.
So the body is as good to survive as anything else on the planet, like an animal or anything else. Like, it knows what to do instinctually to survive. It's going to find meat. It's going to kill. It's going to make sure it can mate. Things like this, like to like make sure they're surviving.
Yeah.
But like the consciousness factor may not be like necessary for the animal physical being to survive. And if we are conscious beings and experiencing these things, but separated by the fact that like my ability to communicate with you right now is not actually indigenous to my body. I can, as soon as I die or before I was born, it was here already. It was just attached to this thing that I've now been living for,
right,
X amount of years.
right.
And like the idea that like after you die, like that could happen, like, and like your experience is completely, as consciously, your experience can be completely detached from a body.
Let's go back to the simulation analogy real quick, because
Okay.
let's
love
say
this analogy.
you're in an MMORPG, right?
Yeah.
You're on some massively multiplayer online, and you don't have voice chat, but you're playing with someone, and your only interface to talk to them is a chat on the keyboard. Tap it, tap it, tap it, tap it, tap it, enter. And then they like interpret your sentence wrong. You don't use your words properly.
Happens all the time.
And then something else, they come back at you, and you're like, wait, shit, like it's a miscommunication, but it's starting to spin out of control. But all you have is the typing.
Understand.
Right. And now you get mad or whatever. But it's because you're restricted to this typing interface.
Yep.
If you were to just be on a voice chat, or if you were to be in person with the person sitting next to each other playing the video game together, right? You can just be like, you can clear it up. But because you're stuck
instantly
doing it through the typing or texting these days, right?
Yeah.
You can end up with these crazy miscommunications that like blow up.
Yep.
And similarly, you could use that metaphor for human language versus this telepathic, direct sharing sort of experience of communication.
Yeah.
So if there's another level, if there's another side to this life, right, and you die and you're back in this whatever spiritual soul body, like you're probably not talking through words vibrating air with a vocal cord. Like you're using some sort of energy exchange or whatever is the telepathic thing, right? So in a similar way, like maybe we can learn to experience that. Maybe we can learn to turn that on.
Yeah. Which would be like what Amy was expressing, is like learning to like trust your intuition, trust the signals you're getting from the outside world that maybe aren't making it into your conscious understanding, but are feelings and like awarenesses that you're getting just from being in a certain situation. Like,
right.
When you're turned on the wrong street and you shouldn't be there. When like something is going on, like you get a sense of it and you don't know what. Nothing physically or verbally is happening to let you know that something bad is about to happen, but you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
We've all been in those situations.
Right.
And it's just whether you trusted your intuition or not that it gets you out of those situations, or at least makes it easier to deal with, or, like it's a true thing. Like kids have an intuition too, from a young age. And if you're taught to harness that, and then you grow up your entire life understanding what it is that you are capable of doing physically, like not all the information you're going to get is through your senses. It's going to be a feeling that you just have.
Well, imagine the recontextualization for parenting too. Like, it's like, how do you think about this type of thing? Like
I do.
Because at the same time, you're trying to bestow upon them the gift of language and teaching them how to like index the world and use their words and, like become emotionally intelligent. Like you also have to learn to feel what they're feeling.
Yep. And
like, how do you teach them to trust the feeling of what they're feeling? And like, is it like almost a contradicting or a confusing message to be like, trust your instincts? What do you feel? And also like, use your words, you know?
Yeah. No, it's a hard thing to tackle as a parent. And I feel it because I'm like, I want my kids to like have like trust their intuition. Like it's a useful thing. Like I've definitely leaned on it myself. Just being in certain crowds and being in certain situations and understanding like the feeling of why do you feel that way? You don't feel that way anonymously or anomalously. It's something that's like causing you discomfort. You just don't have words to understand what it means, but you still should act on it in whatever way you feel appropriate.
Right.
and being able to express that, like with the kid, like trying to explain.
I think we have a lot to learn as a society and as culture, as parents, as students, as teachers, as friends and family members, on like how to
fully communicate with your loved ones.
Learn all these lessons of the civilized culture we've developed, but also like reintegrate these like forbidden aspects that we've been shooing off into the taboo realms for so long, right? Like how do you reintegrate and recontextualize science with spirit, with feeling and emotion and intuition?
And in an effective way too, where it means something, like it actually
because we don't want to make the same mistake in the opposite direction, right? Like science exists,
we become cold, and
physics exists. There are rules to the level of reality we're on, and we learn so much from it.
But you don't need to be cold and distant to your emotions, and to the feeling.
So we have to be conscious of both sides. Like we can do all one or all the other, and they come with different sets of problems. It's how good can we integrate the two?
And like really allow ourselves to be our full selves and not become dogmatic in the approach of I'm only going to listen to what's logical and reasonable, and if I have to die for that, then I will, Yeah,
because there are times when something is communicating to you and you can't put words to it,
or you just won't listen to it based on your upbringing and your dogmatic beliefs of it. Like you just won't even accept that it's a possibility for you.
Well, and if you become so practiced at that, like the way our brains work is it'll just start doing that for you. And eventually you've essentially turned that channel off. Right, so how do you stop and slow down and learn to reconnect to that thing that you've severed a long time ago?
Yeah.
That only gets through to you through dreams and through weird premonitions.
And you just, the next day you say, I had a crazy dream, and then nobody asks you about it.
Right.
I want to get to a place where like everybody wants to like ask you about your dreams and like, oh, I had this crazy dream. Oh yeah, tell me about it. I want to hear about it. Like, what'd you discover from that? Like, that would be a cool thing. Like your friends come to you with dreams, and you're just like, yeah, let's chat this shit out.
Yeah.
Instead of talking about sports and freaking like stock markets and like. I'd rather talk about what'd you dream last night. That'd be a way more interesting conversation than any football game.
The 2 episodes ago on the talk tracks with the telepathy tapes, they did an episode on people. All right, there was this. They tell this story. They tell it like a haunting, but she gives away pretty early. She's like, "This is what's great about this story is this is not a story of a haunting." So she tells this story of this lady who moves into this house with her 2 children. And it was a house that like goes back in this family, like generations or whatever. And like some of the people in the family still live in the neighborhood or even down the street, right? But this family bought this house. And anyway, so the children, she finds them like playing with this like imaginary friend. And one time she sees this girl talking to her boys, and then when she sees the girl disappears. And over time, she sees the girl more. She starts to like talk to her, interact, and the girl follows her around and stuff. And so she's like, dude, we got a freaking ghost. So she starts looking into the history of the house and the family that owned it. And she finds out.
Her family, right? Her ancestors?
No, the people they bought it from, their family.
Oh, okay.
Like eventually sold this house that like goes
to
back
an outside family.
Right.
Okay.
So she finds out that family lives down the street, and she goes and talks to them and describes this girl, and they're like, and gives the name, like they know the name. And they're like, well, that's not possible because she's alive and upstairs right now.
What?
And that's my aunt or whatever. So they end up meeting this woman, and she has the same name. And she's like, when they go out to meet her, she's like, oh, you're Mary, you're Johnny and Billy. She knows their names. And she's like, yeah, every time she's old and has got some sort of condition. Okay. She's like in bed a lot, right?
Bedridden mostly.
Yeah, so she takes these long naps, and she dreams of being a child in her family home down the street that these people live in. And she interacts with these boys and this woman
while
she's sleeping.
Wow.
And yeah, they end up investigating that and finding out that that's, essentially that's their theory on what's happening, is that she's going to sleep
Astral
and somehow projecting herself in a way that these people are interacting with. Wow. And eventually when the lady dies, they never see the girl again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a cool story.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to listen to that one because that's a cool story.
Good episode. And I did not do it justice. They do such a better job.
Yeah.
So as always,
go follow them.
I'll leave a link.
Them.
Check out the telepathy tapes. These last 2 episodes were heaters.
Wow. I'm going to have to check it out. I haven't been watching the talk tapes. I watched the first one, but I haven't watched the subsequent ones.
No, they're getting pretty interesting. The first one was like, it was a cool warm-up, but it didn't like really hook me, but like
I like that
it's
one.
Getting good. It's getting good.
Sweet. All right, let's take a break real quick, and then we'll come back for our third, and I don't know, possibly. We'll see. We'll see where we go here.
All right, this is Soul Food, and the song's called If I.
Right.
Yeah, I got a date with destiny, but I'm flirting with greatness. Between us is jealousy and hope trying to save us. In love with my dreams, so I sleep with her often. In search of peace and beats to get lost in it. Proceed with caution, this life could be rough. Be your enemy or best friend and switch back up. But I keep my eyes open and my heart on my sleeve. I wear it proudly, that's a part of my steez. And if you ever call, I'll be there in the breeze. Just tell me what it is and I'll give you what you need. And I'll come running just to see you again. If you ever need a friend, just know you can call on me. Now follow me along, don't be alarmed, don't hesitate. This world is ours, make no mistakes, but we don't gotta stay. I wonder would you care at all if I called your name? I know this game ain't fair, but I gotta play.
I know it can be so hard, I know it can be so tough. Just cause we're over now don't mean we had enough. I don't wanna leave you,
Yeah,
oh, but I just can't stay. Would you come back to me
yo,
if I called
I can hear all the voices in my head and the rhythm that it plays to the beating of my heart and the music that it makes. This position that I'm faced with, choices I must take, can either take me higher or lose you by mistake. It's the price I gotta pay for this life that I chase. From this mic and this page to the lights and the stage. And suffice it to say, I'm in love with my dreams. Do I choose it over love or fight for my queen? It's the life of a dreamer and I'm right in between. Whether right or it's wrong, got the right to be me. So tonight let's let it be and pretend I never leave you. Treat you as my equal, cause that's how I see you. I need you more so than ever, never before. Let's play it out, as we hit a chord. This instrumental, of course, you're the one. But these drums got me wondering who's still with me when the music stops playing.
I know it can be so hard, I know it can be so tough. Just cause we're over now don't mean we had enough. I don't wanna leave you,
Yeah,
oh, but I just can't stay. Would you come back to me
yo,
if I called your
if I called your name, would you feel the same if we switch position? This language that we speak is so strange, yet we play like this flame will never go out. It's my time more than ever, but I can't go now. I can't, but I must, and I'll take the blame for it. I'm lost in the love and I feel the pain for it. It's the same story again, and I'm sorry to say it's part of the game. This heartache and pains, but what's it worth to gain to lose you over the fame? Now would it be the same if I left and came back? Can we be again? I know it feels so cold, but just hold on for a minute. We got a long way to go, this is just the beginning. The pain is just too real without you here. Even though we're apart, you held me down from the start. I know you're always near, I know you're always here.
holding down my heart. I know it can be so hard, I know it can be so tough. Just cause we're over now don't mean we had enough. I don't wanna leave you, oh, but I just can't stay. Would you come back to me if I called your name? If I called your
Be erect. or be made erect, just as it is with the members in those bodies which are united in one. So it is with the rational beings which exist separately, for they have been constituted for one cooperation, and the perception of this will be more apparent to you if you often say to yourself that I am being a member of the system of rational beings. But if you say that you are apart, you do not yet love men from your heart. What is good does not yet delight you for its own sake. You still do it barely as the thing of conformity, and yet as and not yet as doing good to yourself. Let what happens be what is. That which can feel the effects of this will complain if they choose to. But unless I think that what happens is an evil, am not injured, and it is in my power not to think so, whatever anyone does or says will not change me. I will be good, just as if the gold or the emerald were always saying this. Whatever anyone does or says, I must be gold and keep my color.
That's beautiful. So,
that is Marcus Aurelius, chapter 7.
If you're living your life out of conformity, you are not yet living it for the joy of it.
Right.
And therefore, you're not getting what it is trying to offer you.
What the effects of it can be.
Right.
And therefore, you are frightened and in pain.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Let what happens be what it is.
Right.
That which can feel the effects of this will complain if they choose to. But unless I think that what has happened is an evil, but I am not injured,
Right.
and it is in my power not to think so.
So, like, there's layers to this stuff, right? Like, if something happens in your life and it doesn't affect you and you don't even find it particularly evil or wrong, but, like, you just disagree, like, are you going to put all your energy into that? Like,
Into focusing wholeheartedly on it,
Yeah.
and what it may mean for you.
yeah, like, why? Like,
Yeah.
couldn't you be focusing on the things you want out of life rather than the things you disagree with what others are doing with their life, right?
Or say you should be doing with your life or whatever.
I mean, I get it. If what you see, you actually believe to be an evil in the world and you think it is your highest calling to do something about that. Right? But if it's not that, and if it's not hurting you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does it matter? Like,
Does it deserve your energy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you now just like enforcing that conformity on someone else because it was enforced on you? Or is it actually coming out of your being, your soul, that to like be against this thing, you know?
Right. As if it was evil.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense to reserve that sort of energy for evil, but like, is it? Or did it hurt you? Like, if it hurt you, there's a certain amount of energy.
Sure.
Like, it's possible for something to not be evil, but to hurt you, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And when that happens, you want to... You
still need to figure out
You
whether
should respond
it's-
to it, right?
Well, you should still figure out whether it's worth your attention,
Right.
or if it's something that is completely controllable by
Well,
you.
but if it hurts you, there's something that it affected about you, right? And so there's probably a proper way to respond to that in a healthy manner. But if what happened to you hurt you, but it wasn't necessarily evil, say some person like legitimately had some crazy freak event that caused them to crash into you on the road, right? And you get hurt.
Yep.
That doesn't necessarily mean that person is evil. What they did is an evil. And there is a type of person who maybe just tries to get from that situation what they need to like go on with their life and move on. And there's some people who take it as an opportunity to like
make a point.
Right.
Use their ego.
Or even take advantage of it and they end up becoming the
ego.
evildoers. Like, you know, so like just because you're wronged doesn't mean the thing that wronged you is evil.
Right.
And people sometimes get lazy with assigning evil to things that they disagree with. It's possible to disagree
just
without
some sort of friction
assigning
in your life.
evil. Right.
Any kind of friction in your life doesn't, there shouldn't be an automatic assumption of evil.
Right.
There should be some more thought put into it before assigning such things.
Right.
And there should be...
And conformity exists for a reason too, right? Like, it's just about extremes, right? Like, if all you do is exist in conformity, but like conformity exists for a reason so that we can work together and make efficient things that we do in social coordination, right? Like, there's a little bit of conformity. You just learn to conform a little bit where it doesn't hurt you, where it's not evil, right?
Yeah.
And it just helps people work better together.
Sure.
But going with conformity when something is evil is another form of, that is how we get to these places in the world where like all this fucked up shit is happening, is because they're just going along to get along when some bad shit's happening. It's like sometimes we need to stand up against the evil.
That's how you get a Hitler or some tragedy happening on a large scale.
Right. That can go dark really fast and in really extreme ways.
You're just accepting the status quo when you're not actually understanding what it is that the status quo is doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a great quote. I like that one.
Marcus Aurelius, chapter 7, page 104.
So we talked about this other thing when we were outside, and I thought it was cool. And I thought it would be useful. Maybe all right. So we talked about this thing. What brought it up about the whole like seasons and like changing?
It was,
you brought something up and I told that story.
Yeah, it was it was what we had just listened to, I think, before.
With Amy. Oh, by the way, thanks for 2 freaking segments.
Yeah, no kidding. And maybe more. We'll see.
Yeah.
It was about the idea of like seasons and the fact that like daylight savings can really knock you out.
I forget what started our talk about daylight.
I can't remember.
Oh yeah, we were looking at the stars. So we do this thing where we go outside.
Like,
I have a little vape in our breaks, right? And for the last like year, we've been doing this thing. We've been looking up at Drew's new place, and I've been getting used to the stars and their positions at this time on Friday. Yeah. Right. And like within the range. And so I'm getting a feel for like where the stars are at this moment.
And where they're moving. Yeah.
At this moment, like I can know where to expect the stars and what to see where. And then the daylight savings change happens again. And dude, it's been throwing me off. It's really been throwing me off. Like I feel like I lost all sense of like where the stars are supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it's thrown me off.
And then we started talking about how there's this whole history of
calendars, right?
And how they were created and how they were manipulated over time, and how we landed in a certain space where now we have daylight savings that, and then we have the start of the year in January. But like in history, like these things weren't always the way that they are now.
Yeah, you talked about some king in the past that like changed.
I think it was a pope. I think it was a pope. A long time ago.
You said like 100 years or something. I don't know if it was that much, but I think it was like 100
years that was wiped from the calendar.
There might have been, because at some point they switched the calendar to like align in their view with however like it works with Jesus and whatever.
Right.
But also at some point they got advanced enough in science, and these might have been 2 different events. But they became advanced enough to realize that we needed this like leap day. Every 4 years, like we started learning like how to adjust the calendar, and because we had gone so many centuries without that, we ended up in a situation where we were like harvesting in the winter, or planting in the winter and harvest. Like it threw off the seasons because it kept going off by a day every year. Or by a quarter of a day. That's why we had the leap year every 4 years. Mm-hmm. And so they had like all this time to make up for it. And so they ended up switching the calendar to readjust it so that spring is what we expect spring to be and whatnot.
When There are people who argue that like a 30-day calendar, every month being 30 days would actually solve the problem of having to have the leap year and like having to adjust daylight savings and all these things. Like if you start the year in April and then you move it through and every month is 30 days instead of like having 31s and some 30s and then like a 28 thrown in there.
Yeah.
Like you just do every
the
month
only
as
way
a
to
30.
have the same amount, because if you just do 30s, you have to add extra days, like as a holiday stretch or something at the end of the year.
Well, and I think that was actually part of like the whole like story of Jesus, like the 3 days of resurrection, where like the 3 days
Right.
of like
I think you need like more though. I think you need like 5 or more days.
Well, if you think about it, like most months, like if you were to think about all the months that aren't 31, and then you think about the 28.
Right. Because you know the trick, you can count it on your knuckles, right? So like that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's about 5 or 6 days.
Yeah.
Anyway, the only way to have the exact same amount of days every month is to do, they do this in accounting, they do fiscal periods. So instead of months, they go into a fiscal system. And so they'll have 13 28-day fiscal periods, and that actually divides perfectly.
Oh, that's actually, I think that was the point that the argument I was talking about was getting, is like it should be 13 months of 30 days.
But the problem with that is that gets you out of sync with the moon. And so the 12-month system at least approximates a little bit better an association with the moon.
Yeah, I think the one I was talking about was more of like you know, just hard fact, like being able to like make a third. But they did also mention that the fact that like there was a new moon at the end of this cycle a lot of the times. So like there was like this extended period where the moon didn't change phases or something. So like during that month there was like an extra, I don't know if they like backed it up with science, but
the moon has to change phases because of it orbiting the Earth, but unless something crazy happened to Earth's orbit or the moon's orbit,
which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
The moon being weird.
Anyway, so
but the calendar.
The reason I brought this up is because like starting the year on January is weird, right?
Yeah.
Because what do we use timekeeping for, right? We use it to know when to plant. We use it to know when to harvest. We use it to know like how long we've been on this planet, right? Like we're timing these cycles by trying to create these things called dates that are in rhythm with natural cycles, right?
Yeah.
So if you really take a look at what is the natural cycle in Earth terms is like spring is new growth. It's new change. It's
the beginning of life.
The beginning is actually spring, not January. That's new life. That's new growth. And then summer is like maturity and taking advantage of all that growth that happened. And like, you know,
it's like all the abundance. It's all the abundance happening on Earth.
Right. Like the metaphor in human life would be like childhood is spring. And like
adolescence is
adulthood is your early adulthood is your summer. And then your fall is your like, you know, middle ages.
Golden years.
And then your elderly years are the winter.
Yep.
And so like spring is growth, summer is like taking advantage of all that growth or even more rapid growth. And then it starts to, you get on a decline, but like mature decline in the fall, right? Like some things will ripen later on in the year.
Yep.
And then the winter is when it gets cold and everything hibernates and everything like rests
Shrinks
and
up.
waits for the next year of growth, right? And
Yep.
so if you want to, we do this thing, we have this thing in our culture where like people do these New Year's resolutions as if it's the calendar that matters, right? As if when what day we call January 1st has some magic. But if you treat January 1st as some magic date and you put all these like New Year's resolutions onto it and put all this energy into new things, new energy on January 1st, you're out of sync with nature's calendar.
Yeah.
So if you want the most out of a new commitment, a new growth. You want to be in resonance, in sync with nature's cycles, then you should treat the beginning of spring as your New Year's, as your time to like implement new changes in your life, new growth patterns, new ideas,
new experiences. Yeah.
And then summer is where you take whatever you've added in the spring and you let it mature. You take advantage, and then you start to wind down in the fall, and then you kind of hibernate. You assess on your year in the winter, and you plan for your next year, and you kind of hibernate. You don't go too far out of right. That's the natural flow. So if you want to get in sync with the earth, you can take on a flow kind of like that, and then you're not fighting against earth's natural energies.
You're moving with it.
And I thought I'd learned that like a long time ago, and I don't know how many people think about that, but I actually did it. You remember one of the times where I lost so much weight?
Yeah.
I timed it on the beginning of
spring. Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah.
I mean, it is such a time of the year where you're out of your winter funk. You're out of like the whole like holidays season.
Yeah.
And, like, you've been back to work for a bit, and like things are starting to ramp up. You're starting to come up with new ideas. You're starting to think about things differently, and like that's when the best time to implement these changes. And like if you're growing, like a lot of times that it is happening in that space. Not that it's exclusively happening in that time frame, because of the way people have adapted to the cycles. Some people are already in summer by spring, like they're already in their cycle of summer by spring, and they're more adaptable in some ways. But if you see yourself as more of a sensitive person to like the earth cycles, or maybe you just think like New Year's resolutions or like new beginnings are not for you, try this and see what happens. Try to change the way that you frame these ideas in a way that makes more sense to you, whether this be it or some other way of doing it. Like that's the whole point of all this, is like figuring out what works for you in your cycles, because we all know, different people have different cycles. Different people are more in tune with different things. So if you're a winter to winter type of person, or you're beginning your year in winter and you're ending your year in winter,
think about it from like waves, right? Think about it as like a shift of flow back and forth, right? From growth energy to sustenance and decay energy, right? Or think about sound waves bouncing back and forth, right? There's a thing called resonance. So if I had a sound wave of a certain length, it will travel across this room and it will hit the wall at a certain point in that wave. If it hits at the exact right point, it ends up getting amplified because the wave pattern is in sync with the waves coming from the other side, and you can build up this standing wave. It's a thing you learn when you're doing recording. Because if you're setting up drums in a room or something, there's going to be certain frequencies that it hits, and there's going to be a certain frequency that resonates in the room. And you want to make sure to try and set up your recording outside of those resonations, because you don't want it to throw off your recording. So you have to like offset things,
like volume.
That's why people will set up these like baffles with these like angles and stuff, is because it's scattering the sound waves to try and prevent these standing waves. So anyway, something going from one direction to the other and something going from that direction back, like they can resonate with each other. So you can do the cycle in opposite. So some people will have the winter change, just like there's night people and day people.
Yep. Exactly. It's all
You're still in resonance, but like, are you in the rhythm of it, or are you going on some weird off phase thing where you're just adding these weird cancellations?
Yep, exactly.
So starting a new thing on January 1st has nothing to do with the natural cycles. That's just a calendar year thing.
Right. But it can be succinct, in your resonance frequency could be synced up with that time scale, that frequency.
Well, if it was going to be like I think it would be like start in fall or start in spring, because those would be the opposites. You can also do half, like harmonics. The way the harmonic series work with waves, right, is you can have a full wave, and then it will resonate again once the wave is twice or half the size. So you can have a full wave, and then you can have a half wave, and then you can have a quarter wave, as long as they add up to the same periods. So like some people may want to do a half year harmonic with starting in the spring and the winter. Some people may want to do like a quarterly harmonic where they start every beginning of a new season with a new cycle. Right. And as long as you're like dividing in sections that are in resonance with the changes of the earth, you can subdivide it differently.
Yeah. So if you're more of a person that likes to set goals more frequently, then maybe you're more of a quarter frequency.
Right.
You know, and maybe if you're somebody who likes to like draw out your plans for a long period of time, you're more of like the full.
Yeah, so you could do like a 3-month cycle where like for 3 months you spend time exploring a new field and
then you're
growth.
able to switch it.
And then you're like expanding on that in the summer. You do a year cycle, right? Or you could be someone who does like a quarterly cycle where you do like you split it into 3 months, and then
Every
you do
month.
your cycles within those 3 months.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's interesting the way all that works.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, what
There
do you
you
guys
go.
think? We're
Podcast
talking
within a
about some
podcast.
changes for the podcast and stuff, and so
Yeah, we were talking about
now is
that too.
actually a great time. We're still early in spring, so like this is change time. So
Yep.
like this is time for us to try new things and see what
And
sticks.
we had those tarot cards that were pushing us in that direction
right
as well.
Right.
So I think we'll see how the next few months pan out.
Totally.
All right, well, let's take a little break early, and then we'll come back and we'll maybe play some of these clips we actually prepared for the show today instead of just
I got some UFO
monologuing.
stuff we can talk about, but
Sick.
yeah.
Yeah, I've got some other clips too if we need more, but
Cool. This is Stevie Nader. It's called Leave With It. All right. Well, that didn't happen, but so sorry, guys. We're actually going to end this a little early. I know this might be abrupt, but we just recorded a whole segment and my computer, like my recording software froze. So luckily we only lost the last segment, but instead of going to a break,
we are going to call it there.
Yeah, but I think we have to bring this stuff back in next week.
Absolutely.
That was so cool.
No, I agree.
Dude, we had a whole talk about with another Shaolin monk clip about like what is the physical body. We had a really cool tarot reading.
I know. It was all so perfect.
Yeah.
But it would be hard to replicate that if we just hit play again.
Yeah, it wouldn't be genuine.
So I think we bring it back in next week and we talk about it more because I think that's kind of the beauty of the show. We can evolve as things go. But I think to just hit play and do it again would be tough right now. So we're gonna end it here. Appreciate y'all listening and hanging out through the podcast. We are on episode 66 now. That's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy to think about. But yeah, if you guys like the episode, follow us on Instagram and Facebook to find out when we post our episodes. If you guys are listening on Spotify or Overcast,
help us share the show. Yeah, if you're on Spotify, give us a comment. You can comment on episodes on Spotify, and you can share it to your friends.
Yeah,
on your social media.
We read one on this episode.
Yes.
So please comment and
if you
like.
listen on iTunes, you can give us a review on the iTunes store, which would super help us.
And we're gonna have clips and images posted throughout the podcast. If you guys want to get that, go on YouTube or Rumble and like and comment. Subscribe, share with your friends if you guys think they're going to be into these types of topics. Go check out our website. We got dualitycheck.net. We got everything there. Dean did some great work on the website, so it looks pretty cool. Easy to use. It's basically like a podcast software all in one. You get everything.
Yeah, I've got a podcast plugin for WordPress.
Yeah, looks good. So yeah, if you guys want to just email us directly like Greg does now.
Yes, please. I like the
emails.
emails.
Up on YouTube, but he's been emailing
Greg, give us
now.
more, dude.
Yeah, we love the emails.
And you can also just email us a link to Discord. I don't know if you can generate your own or not, or if we have to go to the YouTube channel.
But I've been working on it. I sent Dean an invite. Go check your Discord later.
What?
I sent you an invite to our new channel where I'm starting to work on. So we'll have to We'll have to take a time out of the week or something.
Yeah.
And, like work on that together a bit.
And as we're still small, maybe we can like get everyone like added to the Discord, and then maybe we can like set a time of the week where everyone like plans to like hop on for
just
maybe
chat.
an hour or two, just to like get a little bit of live chat, and then the rest of the week can be kind of spread out.
Yeah. At least do introductions and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, our website is is dualitycheck.net.
The
But if you want to
email is
email us, it's
host@dualitycheck.
host@dualitycheck.net. And then, appreciate y'all hanging out with us. We'll see you next week, all right?
Alrighty,
Later.
guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.